If you'd asked me 6 months ago what love looked like, I would have pointed straight at her and told you with a straight face, Allison. 26 years old. Wild-spirited, sharp-witted, warm in a way that made you feel like she was letting you in on some lifelong secret, even if she'd only just met you. She had this way of tilting her head slightly when she listened, eyes squinting at just the right moment, that made people, strangers even, want to confess things. She had a talent for drawing people in, and for a long time, I was proud to be the one she chose to stay with. I'm 28. We'd been together for just over 3 years when everything cracked open. Not a perfect 3 years, but solid. Warm. I never thought I'd be the guy with trust issues, because we never really had any. That's what makes all of this harder. It wasn't just what she did, it was how easily it all unraveled once I paid attention. That's the part one still can't get over. How fast the illusion fell apart when I finally saw what had been there all along. We lived in a modest but cozy apartment just outside the city. I work remotely in IT consulting, mostly cybersecurity audits and back-end support for mid-sized companies. Not thrilling, but it keeps the lights on and gives me enough flexibility to take long lunches or run errands when needed. Allison worked at a marketing agency downtown. She loved the energy of the office, the buzz of campaign deadlines and early morning brainstorms. She thrived in chaos. I was the opposite, measured, precise, grounded. That contrast worked for us. Or at least I thought it did. I was planning to propose. Had been for a while. I'd even circled a weekend on my mental calendar. The ring was the only thing holding me back. I suck at picking out jewelry, that's not me being modest, I mean I have genuinely terrible taste. I'm the kind of guy who sees nothing wrong with a heart-shaped diamond. I once gave Allison a necklace like that for her birthday and she smiled politely, then never wore it again. So, I leaned on someone who knew her style better than anyone, Justine. Justine's her best friend, and over time, she'd become one of mine too. She was like the sister I never had, blunt, loyal, fiercely protective of Allison. It made sense to loop her in. With Allison heading out of town to visit her sister and newborn nephew for the weekend, it felt like the perfect window to finalize things. Justine agreed to come over and help me look through ring options. We spent the better part of an hour scrolling through online catalogs, rejecting designs that were too gaudy or too safe. Eventually, she suggested we hit a couple of local jewelers in person, get a real feel for the settings and styles. I agreed. But first, I needed to know how much time we actually had. I pulled out my phone and shot Allison a casual text. Hey babe, thinking of grabbing takeout later, what time are you getting home so I know when to order? She replied maybe 10 minutes later. Her message was simple. A few hours. Justine and I met up to do some shopping. Should be home by dinner. I blinked at the screen. Read the message twice. Then a third time. And I felt my stomach lurch, a cold, slow twist of nausea. Because Justine was standing in my living room. Sitting on my couch. Still flipping through a page of solitaire rings on my laptop, completely unaware that she was apparently out shopping with my girlfriend. I didn't say anything at first. Just turned my phone around and showed her the screen. Her eyes scanned the message and she furrowed her brow. Wait, what? She said slowly, then looked at me like I was the one playing a prank. I haven't even seen her today. I texted her earlier, but that's it. We both just kind of sat there in silence, the air between us suddenly heavier than it had been. There wasn't any rational explanation. Allison was supposed to be 2 towns over visiting her sister and nephew. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to be lying. And yet, here we were, both of us witnesses to something that made no sense. Justine tried to laugh it off at first, suggesting maybe Allison had bumped into another friend, or maybe she was trying to spare me some kind of unnecessary guilt. But there was no mistaking what she wrote. She claimed to be with Justine, and Justine was right there in front of me. She had lied. Blatantly. Casually. Like it was second nature. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't confront her. When she came home hours later, she acted normal. Smiling, chatting, dropping her shoes by the door like it was any other Thursday. She even handed me a tiny baby-sized hoodie she said her sister had given her for someday. I laughed, trying to keep my hands from shaking, and made a mental note to throw it away later when she wasn't looking. That night we ate Chinese takeout and watched a rom-com she picked, one of those over-the-top, everyone falls in love in the snow kind of films. She curled up against me on the couch, laughing at the corny parts and stealing bites of my orange chicken like she always did. And I just sat there. My arm around her. My heart somewhere else entirely. Because I couldn't stop asking myself, where the hell was she really that day? And worse, who was she with? The thing they don't tell you about suspicion, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't blow up into arguments right away, is that it's a living thing. It grows teeth. It finds its way into your routines, into the way you watch someone pour coffee, the way they answer your questions too quickly, or not quickly enough. I didn't say anything to Allison that first night, but my silence had weight. And I could tell she felt it. The next morning, I watched her from across the breakfast table as she scrolled through her phone. Her face looked the same as always, unbothered, focused, lips curled into that slight smirk she wore when she read memes she wouldn't show me. But everything else was off. The way she kept glancing up to see if I was looking. The little stutter in her voice when I asked if her sister and nephew were doing okay. "They're good," she said. "Tired, you know. New baby and all." Then she added, "Justine sends her love, by the way. We ran into her at Target." It took everything in me not to react. My jaw tightened, but I kept chewing my toast like her words weren't cutting little notches into my ribs. I nodded, looked down at my plate, and made a sound of acknowledgement that could have meant anything. Because I couldn't trust myself to speak. She was improvising. That much was obvious. Making up a patchwork of a story on the fly. The worst part? She had no idea I already knew. She didn't know I had seen the string pulled loose, that the whole sweater was unraveling right in front of her. After she left for work, I just sat at the kitchen table, trying to remember every little thing she'd ever told me that didn't quite fit. I thought about the weekend last month when she said she was at a friend's bachelorette brunch, but there were no photos. No stories. No mimosas and eggs Benedict Instagram post, which, for Allison, was unheard of. I thought about the night she came home with a cheap necklace and said her coworker had gifted it to her for helping out on a campaign, even though it didn't look new, and even though she didn't seem all that excited to show it to me. That was when it started. The documenting. At first, I just opened a note on my phone. Titled it, "Things That Don't Add Up." I listed the lie about Justine. The brunch with no evidence. The necklace. The night she left her phone on the charger but turned it face down, screen dark, and jumped when I picked it up to hand it to her. By the end of the week, the note was 7 items long. Not proof. Not really. But enough smoke to know there was a fire somewhere I couldn't yet see. I couldn't talk to Justine about it again. Not yet. Not without dragging her deeper into something she didn't ask for. She hadn't followed up about the lie either, which either meant she didn't want to get involved, or she had her own doubts she didn't want to voice aloud. Either way, it felt wrong to corner her. So, I started watching. Not in the dramatic sense. I didn't tail her car or go through her drawers. But I began paying attention to things I never used to notice, the times her phone stayed on Do Not Disturb when she was home. The way she sometimes stayed in the bathroom just a little too long with her phone in hand. The way she started sleeping facing the wall, not curled into me like she used to. We didn't fight. We didn't raise our voices. But something between us had shifted, quiet and cold. We kissed less. We touched less. I started finding excuses to work late, even if late meant sitting in the car in the parking garage outside our building, just so I didn't have to go upstairs and pretend everything was still normal. Then came Saturday. She said she had to run a few errands, groceries, dry cleaning, maybe stop by her sister's again. I nodded, wished her a good day, and told her I'd probably just hang around the apartment. As soon as the door closed behind her, I pulled out my laptop. I wasn't planning anything drastic, not yet, but I knew what I wanted to do. I opened up our shared calendar and checked her previous entries. They were always vague. Errands. Lunch with M. Gym. But they were there, an archive of movements. I started cross-referencing those entries with the text thread she and I had over the last few months. And then I pulled up her Instagram. She wasn't posting much lately, not nearly as much as she used to. But her likes were public. Her comments were too. And in the background of one of her friend's brunch pictures from 2 weeks ago, I saw a man. Not someone I recognized. Mid-30s maybe. Wearing a tan coat I'd never seen before. Allison had told me that day she was stuck at work, covering for a sick coworker. I clicked through her friend's profile. Nothing suspicious. No tags. But the guy showed up again, a few weeks earlier, in a photo taken at a wine bar downtown. Just one photo. No context. Just people smiling, crowded into a booth. And Allison, barely visible, sitting at the edge, staring down at her drink, next to him. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I took a screenshot. Saved it to a folder titled Maybe. Later that night, I asked her how her errands went. She smiled. Kissed my cheek. Good, she said. Long day. But productive. I smiled too. Because by then, I'd started telling my own lies. And they felt effortless. There's something addictive about not knowing. You'd think certainty is what you crave, the truth laid bare, no more second-guessing. But once you've been lied to by someone you love, doubt becomes the thing you feed. Every word, every glance, every "love you" becomes evidence. A breadcrumb. A signal wrapped in static. You start living in the negative space of a relationship, reading between the lines instead of just hearing the words. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I was waking up earlier than Allison just to check her phone's position on the nightstand, always face down. She never used to do that. I started timing her showers, noticing how long she stayed in there with her phone propped on the sink like a tiny lifeline. I wasn't proud of it. I didn't feel smarter. I felt hollowed out, like I was watching my own life through frosted glass. The night after I saw the mystery man in the Instagram background, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the way she was angled in the booth, not turned toward her friends, but away from them. Toward him. Her face was half hidden behind a curtain of hair, like she didn't want to be caught on camera. Or like she didn't think she would be. I had questions, but they all came with consequences. If I asked her, "Where were you that day, really?" she'd want to know why I was checking. If I told her about the photo, about the inconsistency in her stories, I'd have to admit I was checking timestamps. Locations. Likes. And if I was wrong? If I'd let this ugly seed of suspicion take root in a perfectly healthy garden, if she was telling the truth all along, I knew I might ruin us for good. But I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. And I couldn't unfeel that sharp snap of betrayal when she claimed to be with Justine and wasn't. So, I came up with a plan. Something subtle. Something I thought would give me clarity. The following Friday, I told her I had a last-minute job, a client whose database migration had gone off the rails. I said I'd be gone until late. Maybe even overnight if things went really south. She offered to bring me dinner, which almost made me change my mind right there. But I waved her off, kissed her forehead, and left the apartment like I was going to war. In a way, I was. I didn't go far. I parked in a public garage 3 blocks away, pulled out a blanket, and laid the seat back. I didn't need to see everything. I just needed to know, would she leave? Would she bring someone over? Would anything seem off? It was supposed to be one night. Just one quiet test of truth. By hour 3, I'd gone through 2 cold coffees and half a pack of gum I didn't even remember buying. I watched our windows. I refreshed her location on the Find My app, the one she'd asked me to enable months ago when she got nervous jogging in the mornings. Her little dot stayed put. Around 9:17 p.m., I saw her silhouette through the living room window. She was pacing. Talking on the phone. I couldn't hear anything, but she wasn't smiling. She looked anxious. Kept touching her face, her neck, like she was explaining something she didn't quite believe herself. 10 minutes later, she closed the blinds. My chest clenched. I checked the app again. Still home. But now the lights started going out. First the kitchen. Then the living room. Then our bedroom. By 10 p.m., the apartment was dark. It should have calmed me. It didn't. I waited another hour. No movement. No change. Eventually, I drove to a diner near the edge of the city. Ate greasy hash browns I didn't taste. Stared at the blinking neon sign outside until my eyes watered. I got back home just after 1 a.m. The apartment was silent. She was asleep on her side of the bed, back to me. The kind of sleep that looks peaceful but isn't. Her hand twitched a little when I walked in. Like she was half aware I was there. I slipped into bed without waking her. And laid there, staring at the ceiling, until morning bled through the blinds. The next day, she didn't mention anything. She asked how the job went. I told her it was fine, long, exhausting, but successful. She rubbed my back and said she was proud of me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe me. But the more normal things looked, the more paranoid I became. That night, when she showered, I cracked open her laptop. I didn't snoop through files. I just opened Chrome. Her tabs were all closed, a habit she never used to have. Cleared her history too. No saved logins. Not even her Pinterest was still signed in. Maybe she was being cautious. Or maybe she had something to hide. The truth was, I didn't need any more confirmation. I already believed something was wrong. I could feel it in the way she kissed me goodbye, more out of routine than affection. I could hear it in her laughter, short, polite, like a woman telling a joke to a stranger at a party. I could see it in the way she kept reaching for her phone like it was a parachute and she was always mid-fall. Still, I said nothing. Still, I smiled. Because part of me wasn't ready for answers. Not yet. It was a Tuesday when I heard the name. Funny how that kind of moment never feels cinematic when it happens. No dramatic thunderclap. No glass shattering in slow motion. Just the low hum of the dishwasher, the clink of her fork against her plate, and the way she said it, casually, almost carelessly, as if he hadn't already become the phantom I couldn't name. Darren said the campaign might extend another 2 weeks, she said, chewing a bite of salmon. He's honestly the only one at that place who knows what he's doing. I didn't react. I couldn't. My body had already stiffened, braced itself like it knew before my mind had caught up. Darren. It landed heavy. Solid. Like the first real footprint of a ghost. I took a sip of water. Darren? She nodded, poking at her food. One of the creatives. I've told you about him. She hadn't. Or if she had, it wasn't in a way that stuck. And I know myself, I remember names when they matter to the person saying them. That night, after she fell asleep, I searched her LinkedIn connections. There he was. Darren M., creative strategist. His profile photo was cropped like he wasn't ready when it was taken, a half-smile, shirt collar askew, a little too confident in the way some men get when they think no one's watching. He was average. Not bad looking, but not what you'd call movie star handsome. Which, in a strange way, made it worse. If it had been some sculpted fitness trainer, some cliché midlife crisis poster boy, I could have laughed it off with bitterness. But this? This was a guy she could pass in the hallway every day and no one would blink. This was someone who had slipped into her world unnoticed. Exactly how I imagined the lie had begun. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept imagining the way she said his name. Darren. Like it meant something to her. Like he was inside jokes and office lunches and too long text threads after hours. I imagined her laughing at his jokes, nodding along while he talked about his weekend, brushing past him in the hallway and pretending not to notice when his hand grazed hers. And then I thought about how little she laughed with me anymore. How long had it been since I made her laugh so hard she cried? The next morning, she was humming while brushing her teeth. That used to be a comforting sound. Familiar. But now it grated, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Like her happiness was something she kept stored elsewhere, only bringing it home when it was convenient. I made coffee. Scrolled through my phone. Searched her work calendar, the one she sometimes synced to our shared Google account when she forgot to turn off the settings. Most of it was redacted, marked busy, meeting, check-in. But one entry caught my eye. Thursday, 3 p.m., Concept Brainstorm, DM. DM, Darren M. My stomach turned. Maybe I was spiraling. Maybe I was creating monsters out of initials and time slots. But then again, maybe I wasn't. Because later that afternoon, when I glanced at her phone sitting on the counter, face up for once, a text came through. Darren, hey, still good for coffee tomorrow? If we don't start early, we'll never finish before the pitch. She picked it up a second later, typed something, and laughed to herself. Not a big laugh. Just a small, satisfied exhale. She never noticed me standing there. I didn't say anything. I just stood there for a long minute, staring at her like she was a stranger passing through my kitchen. A woman I used to know. A woman who used to laugh like that with me. Later that night, I lay in bed next to her, pretending to sleep. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't move. Then it buzzed again. Still nothing. I cracked one eye open and saw the screen light up, the preview blurred, but a name at the top. Darren M. I couldn't help myself. I reached over, gently, slowly, careful not to jostle the mattress. Her breathing stayed even. Her back rose and fell like a metronome. I picked up her phone and opened it. It was locked, of course. She hadn't used to lock it. But sometime in the last 2 months, she started using a passcode again. 6 digits I didn't know. I placed it back carefully. Closed my eyes. Thought about 6 numbers that could unlock a piece of my life I no longer had access to. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek like everything was fine. Told me she'd be late, presentation stuff. I nodded, smiled, offered to order takeout for when she got home. She thanked me, eyes soft, like the kind of woman who'd never betray the man who made her coffee every morning. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed for nearly an hour. Then I grabbed my keys, drove to her office building, and parked across the street. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe I just wanted to see his face. The man behind the name. The man she texted after midnight. The man who got her laughter while I got her silence. 2 hours passed. Then 3. At 3:08 p.m., they came out together. Not touching. Not doing anything incriminating. But she was smiling at him. The kind of smile I used to think belonged to me. I told myself I wasn't going to follow her. I even left the apartment 15 minutes later than she did, took the long way toward her side of town, stopped for gas I didn't need, just to prove I still had control over my choices. But I didn't. Not really. Because when you start living in the shadow of a lie, it changes you. You start rationalizing behavior that used to disgust you. You tell yourself you're just confirming what you already know. You tell yourself it's not stalking, it's investigating. That Thursday, she said she had a brainstorm session and then a client dinner. She'd be home late. "Don't wait up," she said, smiling at me from the doorway like it wasn't a loaded goodbye. So I didn't wait. I drove to the cafe 2 blocks from her agency. Parked in the back. Watched as she exited the building just before 3, coat thrown over her shoulder, phone pressed to her ear. She walked with a lightness she hadn't shown at home in weeks. Like the world outside of me was where she truly existed. And then he appeared. Darren. Khakis. Rolled sleeves. Leather messenger bag. I watched them greet each other with that kind of restrained closeness, the kind that says there's history between two people, but they're trying to keep it invisible. I'd seen it before. On other couples. In airports. At reunions. And now it was my turn to be the outsider watching intimacy form in real time. They walked to a cafe I couldn't see into, but I stayed parked anyway. Every few minutes, I debated whether to leave. What was I expecting to see? A kiss? A confession? Some handwritten note she'd slide across the table like in a bad spy movie? But I stayed. Because staying felt like the only kind of power I had left. At 4:07, they came out. They didn't touch. But she smiled again, that same open, blooming grin that used to be mine. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said something that made him laugh. Then they walked back toward her building. I didn't follow. Not then. Instead, I went home and sat in our apartment like a man waiting for a bomb to go off. I ordered Chinese food. I put on a show I wasn't watching. I lit one of her favorite candles like I wanted to suffocate in the smell of something familiar. She came home around 9:30. No client dinner. No excuse. Just a breezy, "Sorry I'm late," and a kiss that landed on the air beside my cheek. "How'd the brainstorm go?" I asked, pretending to scroll my phone. She nodded while taking off her shoes. "Good. Darren really pulled through with the deck. That guy's a lifesaver." I watched her as she went into the kitchen. She didn't flinch when she said his name. No hesitation. Like it belonged in our conversations now. "I thought you had a dinner?" I asked casually. She opened the fridge. Cancelled. The client rescheduled last minute. We just grabbed coffee instead to go over things. She didn't say we, but I heard it anyway. She closed the fridge and turned around, smiling. "I missed you today." I nodded, chewing the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Later that night, I unlocked my laptop and opened the shared Google Drive folder we used for house stuff, receipts, tax documents, travel plans. And there it was. A new file. A PDF titled branddeck_Darren_March 2025.pdf. She must have uploaded it without thinking. It wasn't her style to be careless. I opened it. It was real. The file was filled with notes, graphics, timelines. It wasn't a cover. There actually was a project. Which almost made me angrier. Because it meant this wasn't a sudden affair. It was something that had grown roots inside something legitimate. A weed choking the garden. That's when the idea hit me. If she wasn't going to give me the truth, I was going to set a trap for it. I created a new contact in my phone. Changed my best friend Josh's name to Darren M. And texted myself from his number, "Hey, same time tomorrow? Don't forget what you promised me." I left the message on my lock screen and placed my phone face up on the nightstand before bed. Justine used to call this cheater psychology, the idea that cheaters become hypervigilant about their partner's behavior because they assume everyone is capable of the same betrayal. I figured if Allison had something to hide, she'd check my phone. Sure enough, I woke up just after 3 a.m. and saw the screen glowing in the dark. She was holding it, scrolling slowly, thumb hovering over the message thread. I didn't move. Didn't say a word. Just watched her quietly lock it again and slide it back to my side of the bed. The next morning, she was different. She kissed me longer. Made coffee for me instead of just herself. Asked about my plans, twice. You doing anything later tonight? She asked, voice light, but her eyes didn't match. I shook my head. Might go to the gym. She smiled. Cool. Let's do something tomorrow then. Just us. Feels like we've been missing each other lately. I stared at her. For the first time, I didn't feel flattered. I felt played. She wasn't trying to reconnect. She was trying to neutralize the threat. She saw the name. The message. And it triggered something primal, a fear that I might be slipping away. That maybe I had something to hide now. Good. Let her wonder. Let her sweat. Because if she was going to dance around the truth, I was done being her stagehand. Let the curtain rise. You can only pretend for so long before the cracks show. Allison was always good at maintaining the surface, cheerful without being saccharine, attentive without overstepping, affectionate in exactly the right amounts. For a long time, that skill worked in our relationship. It made me feel chosen. Special. But once I started watching closely, I realized that performance didn't stop with me. She curated herself for everyone. Her personality was less a person and more a mirror, always reflecting back what the other person wanted to see. After the night she snooped my phone and found Darren's fake message, something in her shifted. She didn't accuse me outright. She didn't even bring it up. But there was a new tension in the way she looked at me. Like she wasn't sure what I knew, or if I was onto her, or if maybe, just maybe, I was guilty of the same thing. That irony would have been amusing if it didn't feel so damn heavy. We did dinner the next night, like she'd suggested. She made pasta, poured wine, lit a candle like we were playing house for someone watching. She was laughing more. Asking me things about work she hadn't asked in months. It felt like watching a stranger play her part in a play I no longer believed in. And then, halfway through her second glass of wine, she slipped. I had asked her about a client she used to rant about, a woman named Tara who micromanaged every campaign like she was designing ads for the White House. Oh, I don't really work with her anymore, Allison said, twirling pasta on her fork. I tilted my head. Didn't you say she emailed you last week about that revision? She blinked. Too fast. Yeah, but that was just Darren's thing. He handled most of it. She said it quickly, casually, like it wouldn't stick out. But it did. I hadn't mentioned Darren. I hadn't even framed the context of the campaign. Just that revision. She'd supplied the rest, and she had no idea I'd laid the trap. I nodded slowly. Got it. She took another bite. Didn't notice the way my expression froze mid-chew. Or maybe she did, but decided it was safer to keep going than to backtrack. That was the thing about Allison, she didn't panic easily. She didn't babble when she lied. She let the silence hang, confident it would pass. But this time, I was done letting it. The next day, I texted Justine. Hey. Can I ask you something off the record? She replied almost immediately. Justine, what's going on? When Allison told me she was shopping with you 2 weeks ago, was that true? There was a longer pause this time. Justine, you mean when I was at your place? Yeah. Justine, no. She wasn't with me. I didn't even see her that day. Why? What happened? I stared at the blinking cursor. Then locked my phone. I didn't want to bring Justine into this, not fully. But I needed that confirmation. I needed someone else to tell me I wasn't crazy. It was time for answers. That evening, while Allison was still at work, I pulled her iPad from the kitchen drawer where she kept it. I'd never checked it before. Didn't think to, it was mostly used for Netflix and Pinterest. But I knew she wasn't tech-savvy. And if her messages were synced. Sure enough, the Messages app opened automatically. I scrolled through the threads. Most were mundane. A few from her mom. A group chat with her coworkers. One from a number labeled D with no last name. I opened it. It was him. There were no explicit messages. Nothing graphic. But intimacy doesn't always announce itself in vulgarity. Sometimes, it's just the way people speak to each other. The timing. The rhythm. D, you looked tired today. Want to talk later? Allison, only if I can vent about my idiot client lol. D, vent away. I like listening to you. Allison, careful. You're gonna make me say things I shouldn't. That one hit like a punch to the ribs. It wasn't what she said. It was the ease with which she said it. No hesitation. No restraint. The messages went back weeks. Sometimes short bursts. Sometimes longer. But they all told the same story. She wasn't just cheating on me in her body. She was cheating on me in her time. In her honesty. In the way she no longer brought her exhaustion home, because she'd already given it to someone else. I took screenshots. Sent them to a private folder in my drive. Then I closed the iPad, set it exactly where I'd found it, and sat down at the kitchen table with my thoughts screaming at full volume. I didn't cry. Not yet. That came later, in the shower, where I pressed my forehead against the tile and let the water run over me like it could rinse her touch off my skin. She came home like normal. Kissed me. Asked about dinner. I told her I wasn't hungry. She gave me a curious look. Everything okay? And I looked at her, really looked at her, like I was cataloging the person I'd loved against the one I was living with. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. She nodded, satisfied, and walked away to change out of her work clothes. I watched her leave the room, and for the first time, I felt something stronger than pain. Resolve. It was time. I was going to confront her. But not yet. Not in the heat of discovery. No, I wanted it to be deliberate. Measured. If she was going to lie with precision, I wanted the truth to hit just as sharp. I had never seen Allison scared before. I'd seen her frustrated, sure. I'd seen her anxious when bills piled up or her mom got sick. I'd seen her angry at herself for burning a roast or spilling wine on a white shirt. But scared? That was new. It wasn't fear like in a movie. No gasps or wide eyes. It was quieter. Subtle. It lived in the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her sweater, in how her eyes didn't quite meet mine, in the sudden overcorrection of her tone, too sweet, too controlled. I knew what I was doing when I set the trap. It started with the invitation. I made a reservation for dinner tomorrow night. Just us. Thought we could get out of the apartment for once. She hesitated before smiling. That sounds nice. I nodded. Thought so too. I booked the same Italian place we celebrated our second anniversary at. A restaurant steeped in memories. One she'd said made her feel like she was in a movie. I wanted her off balance, disarmed by familiarity. Nostalgia is a powerful drug. It makes people soften when they should be suspicious. When the night came, she dressed up. Hair curled. Makeup done just enough to look effortless. She wore the green dress that always made me stop mid-sentence when she walked into a room. It didn't make me stop this time. But I noticed the effort. She wanted control back. She could feel it slipping. We sat across from each other, candles flickering between us like witnesses. She made small talk. Asked about work. Told a funny story about her coworker tripping over an extension cord and knocking over a tray of smoothies. I laughed in the right places. Played my part. Then I leaned forward, folded my hands, and tilted my head slightly. "Allison," I said softly, "how long have you been in love with him?" Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She blinked once. Then again. "I'm sorry," she asked, setting the fork down slowly. "Darren," I said. "How long?" There it was. The flash of fear. Gone in a second, masked by confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You've been talking to him almost every day for the past month." "I read the messages." She went pale. Her lips parted slightly like she wanted to say something, anything, but couldn't decide what script to pull from. That's not fair," she whispered. "No," I said, voice steady. "What's not fair is sitting across from someone who you kissed goodnight after texting another man how much you miss his voice." She looked down. Stared at the tablecloth like it had answers. I waited. Let the silence choke us both. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I didn't mean for it to happen." A phrase so tired it almost made me laugh. But I didn't. I kept my face still. "Did you sleep with him?" Her eyes shot up. "No." I stared at her. "Swear on your mother." She hesitated. That was enough. "I didn't want it to be real," she whispered, finally. I liked how he made me feel. It started out harmless. Compliments. Jokes. Then one day I realized I was thinking about him more than I thought about you, Anne. And that didn't stop you? She shook her head, tears starting to build. "I didn't think I was capable of something like this. You're not the person I thought you were." "I know." I took a breath, steady and slow. "I was going to propose to you." Her head snapped up. "What?" 3 weeks ago. Justine was helping me pick out a ring." She looked stunned. Genuinely stunned. "I texted you that day to see when you'd be home. You told me you were shopping with Justine." I leaned back, my voice dropping. Justine was sitting on my couch when I read that message. She covered her mouth. I kept going. I had to. The dam had broken. "You lied to my face. And you didn't just lie, you lied casually. Comfortably. Like it was muscle memory." She nodded slowly, like she wasn't even trying to fight it anymore. "I wanted to believe you," I said. "I still wanted to believe you. Even when I saw the text. Even when I followed you. Even when I saw you smile at him the way you used to smile at me." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry." "I don't think you are," I said quietly. "I think you're sorry you got caught." "No," she said, reaching across the table, her hand hovering over mine. "No, please don't do that. Please don't reduce what we had to this." I stared at her hand. Didn't move. "I loved you," I said. "Maybe I still do. But you took something from me I can't get back." "What can I do?" she whispered. "Tell me." "I'll do anything." I finally looked her in the eyes. "You can tell me the truth. All of it. And then you can leave." She blinked. "Leave? You don't have to go tonight. But this isn't salvageable, Allison. You broke something sacred. You let another man into something that was supposed to be ours. She broke down then. Right there in the middle of the restaurant. Shoulders shaking. The kind of crying that doesn't look beautiful, it looks like collapse. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just quiet. A numb clarity that I had crossed the bridge and there was no going back. Later that night, she packed a small bag. Didn't ask where she should go. Didn't beg. She just stood in the doorway, looking like a version of herself I'd never seen, stripped of charm, of rehearsed warmth. Just real. Broken. Where do I go from here? She asked. I shrugged. Wherever truth takes you. Then I closed the door behind her. And I didn't cry. Not yet. The first morning after she left, I woke up and made 2 cups of coffee out of habit. It wasn't until I placed the second mug on the empty side of the table that I realized what I'd done. Her chair was still pushed in, her jacket still hanging on the hook by the door. She had only taken what she could carry in that small overnight bag. The rest, the framed pictures, the favorite sweater draped over the couch, the lavender shampoo in the shower, remained behind like they were waiting for her return. But I knew she wasn't coming back. Not to us. Not to the version of me that once trusted her without hesitation. I sat there, staring at her untouched mug, and I felt something in my chest crack open. Not a sob. Not a scream. Just a slow, sinking pressure, like gravity finally remembered how to hurt me. That day was brutal. I called in sick to work and just existed. Watched the clock tick. Folded a load of laundry and sat on the floor halfway through, holding one of her t-shirts like it could answer all the questions spinning in my head. Why did she do it? What was I missing? Was I not enough? I kept going back to that one moment at the restaurant, the look in her eyes when she realized I knew. That exact second her performance dropped and all that was left was fear. Not regret. Not guilt. Just the dread of consequences. That was the moment I knew I'd never trust her again. And still. I missed her. I missed the way she'd hum when brushing her teeth. The way she used to leave me stupid notes in my lunch bag when I had client meetings. The way she'd slide under my arm while we watched trash TV, pretending she hated it but whispering commentary the whole time. That was the hardest part, knowing that not all of it was fake. Some of it had to be real. Didn't it? Or maybe I was just clinging to the idea of her, not who she was, but who I wanted her to be. The second day, I started packing her things. I didn't rush it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clinical. Methodical. I boxed up her jewelry, folded her sweaters carefully, took down the framed Polaroid from our first weekend trip together and stared at it for longer than I meant to. We looked happy in that photo. Giddy. She was on my back, arms around my neck, laughing into my ear. I remember thinking I'd never loved anyone so much in my life. I put it in a shoebox and closed the lid. Just before noon, Justine called. I hesitated before answering, unsure of whether I wanted to talk about it yet. But I picked up anyway. Hey, she said gently. I heard. Yeah, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. She's gone. Justine didn't say I'm sorry. She didn't need to. She told me she needed space, she said. Said she messed up. But she didn't give me details. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. She said she didn't sleep with him. She also said she was at my house that day, Justine replied. I think we've both learned how much her word's worth. There was a pause. Then she added, Are you okay? I didn't know how to answer that. Okay was too simple. Too clean. I'm surviving, I said. Which I guess is something. We talked for a while. Justine didn't pry. She didn't analyze. She just listened. And in that moment, I realized how much I needed that, someone who wouldn't try to put it all back together for me. Someone who understood that sometimes you don't need a rescue. You just need someone to sit with you in the wreckage. That night, I went through her old notebooks, the ones she kept in the drawer by the bed. Most of it was grocery lists, sketches, half-written ideas for blog posts she never published. But tucked between 2 pages was a handwritten letter with no name at the top. I recognized her handwriting immediately. It was dated 2 months earlier. It started like this. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I think I love him. But I don't know if I'm in love. I hate how I feel when I see Darren. I feel young again. Wanted. Like someone's looking at me like I'm more than just who I've become. But when I look at you, I feel safe. And sometimes, safe feels like a cage. I stopped reading. My hands were trembling. Not from anger. From recognition. Because the truth was, I'd felt it too. That slow slide from passion into pattern. The erosion of novelty. The gentle settling into routine that lovers mistake for boredom. I thought we were building something stable. She thought we were burying something thrilling. And somewhere in the middle of that misunderstanding, we both became strangers to each other. I folded the letter, placed it back where I found it, and turned off the light. That night, I didn't dream of her. I dreamt of silence. Of a house with no footsteps in the hall. And somehow, that felt like progress. There's this moment that stuck in my head, not the betrayal, not the confrontation, not even the aftermath. It was 2 weeks after she left. I was sitting in traffic, same route I've driven for years. A song came on the radio. One I hadn't heard since our 2nd anniversary, a stupid indie track she used to play while brushing her teeth. And just like that, I lost it. Right there, surrounded by strangers in their cars, I broke. It wasn't loud. There were no screams. Just a soft collapse. A pressure behind the eyes, a shaking in my hands, and then, tears. The kind that feel like they've been waiting for the right exit. The kind you don't even know are still inside you until they spill out without asking permission. That was the moment I realized I wasn't grieving her. I was grieving me. The man who believed love was enough. The man who thought effort always paid off. The man who looked at her and saw forever, never realizing she was already halfway out the door. I had to bury that man. And it hurt more than anything she did. In the weeks that followed, people reached out. Some offered clichés, time heals all, you'll find someone better, everything happens for a reason. Others were more honest. They told me they'd been through it too. That betrayal doesn't just steal your partner, it steals your sense of narrative. You stop trusting your memory. You start wondering which smiles were real, which nights were performances, which kisses were meant for someone else. But no one, could tell me how to forgive myself. Not for missing the signs. Not for staying silent when I should have spoken. And not for still loving her, even in pieces. One night, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. But curiosity's a cruel thing. I checked the voicemail. It was her voice. Hey. I wasn't going to call. I told myself I'd respect your space. But then I saw something today, this guy holding his wife's hand in line for coffee, just, casually. And I thought of you. I don't know why. Maybe because you used to do that. Hold my hand like it meant something even when no one was looking. She paused, then sighed. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I'm sorry. Still. Every day. I know that doesn't mean anything. I just wanted you to hear it out loud. Not from a screen. You deserved better. You always did. Click. I sat there staring at the floor for a long time. I didn't call back. Because the apology wasn't for me, not really. It was for her. A way to feel slightly less monstrous. A wound she could stitch closed with carefully chosen words. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of asking why. Tired of wondering what I did wrong. Tired of carrying a version of myself she no longer recognized. So I did something I hadn't done since this all began. I went for a walk. No destination. No headphones. Just the rhythm of my feet against the pavement and the cold spring wind biting at my face. I passed the bookstore we used to browse on Sundays. The taco truck she loved. The bench we carved our initials into during the first month we moved in together. Every step felt like shedding skin. Not forgetting, I don't think you ever really forget. But choosing not to relive it anymore. Choosing to let the memories exist without constantly rewriting them. That night, I sat down and wrote her a letter. Not to send. Just to say what I needed to say. Allison. I'm not angry anymore. I think that surprised me most. I thought I'd stay bitter forever. But bitterness is heavy, and I've carried enough. You hurt me. That's a fact. But you also loved me, maybe not the way I needed, maybe not the way I deserved, but in your own way. I believe that now. I believe you meant it when you kissed me on the forehead before leaving for work. I believe you laughed with me, not just at me. I believe some of it was real. And I needed it to be. Because I refused to let what you did turn everything we had into poison. That gives the worst parts of us too much power. I'm going to be okay. I think you are too. But we are not each other's futures anymore. And that's something I've finally made peace with. Goodbye. Me. I folded it. Placed it in a drawer. Let it live there like a tombstone for the version of myself I was ready to bury. It's been 3 months now. The apartment is quieter, but it doesn't echo anymore. I've started sleeping through the night again. The dreams are less vivid. The coffee only comes in 1 mug now, but it tastes stronger somehow. Justine and I still talk. She checks in every so often. She told me Allison moved back in with her sister temporarily, but she's in therapy now. Says she's trying to understand what drove her to hurt someone she loved. I hope that's true. Not for me. For whoever comes next. Because I wouldn't wish this kind of heartbreak on anyone. Not even her. The other day, I passed a woman in the park, curly hair, green scarf, walking her dog. For a split second, I thought it was Allison. My heart didn't skip. It didn't twist. It just noted the resemblance and kept walking. That's how I know I'm healing. Not because I've stopped thinking about her. But because when I do, it no longer stings. It just sits there. A scar, not a wound. A lesson, not a story I'm still trapped in. I loved her. I might always love a part of her. But I let her go anyway. And maybe, just maybe, that's what love really is in the end. Not holding on. But knowing when to finally let go.